Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Thanks for joining us on a Friday night. Let's get right into it. Tonight, we're going to spend the first hour talking about cool. Are we ready to go? Are we good? We're good? All right, good. All right. Sorry about that. We are going to talk cool tonight. We're going to spend tonight with some of the coolest people the world has ever seen. Happy birthday to Frank Sinatra. Would have been 110 years old today, and we wanted to find someone to talk about Frank Sinatra. So we found a guy who wrote a book called The Chairman, and while we were getting him on the phone and getting him hooked up for tonight, we also realized that he wrote another book about another cool guy, Miles Davis. And so tonight, we're going to dive into one man, James Kaplan, who wrote the book on Frank Sinatra, the definitive book on Frank Sinatra called The Chairman. And he also wrote a book about Miles Davis called 3 Shades of Blue. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and the Lost Empire of Cool. And that book depicts possibly the best album ever recorded. James Kaplan, welcome to America at Night.
McGraw, delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with 3 Shades of Blue, because that book came out last year, and it's a great Christmas gift for somebody who loves jazz and somebody who doesn't even realize they love jazz. The book is a you look at the album Kind of Blue, which many people consider the greatest album ever recorded. What inspired you to sort of take this journey with Miles Davis?
I began my magazine writing career, McGraw, by snagging an assignment to go interview Miles Davis. He was bringing out a memoir a few years back, and Vanity Fair wanted a profile to go along with the memoir, and Vanity Fair called my brother to see if my brother was a magazine editor at the time, to see if my brother knew of anybody writer who knew anything about jazz. And my brother said, well, my brother knows everything there is to know about jazz. And which was a terrible, terrible mistruth. But somehow I got that assignment, and terrified, I found myself going up an elevator on Central Park South to meet with the fearsome Miles Davis, who had his reputation preceded him. He was not hail fellow, well met. He turned his back on audiences. He was supposed to be a scary guy, and I walked into his apartment, and what I found was a pussycat, a guy who was kind of lonely and wanted to talk about his career in jazz.
What a great way to start a book. So, I mean, this book has been 30 years in the making, really, when you get right down to it.
Yeah, I just, he treated me so well, and he was so considerate, and I became so fascinated since, in fact, at the time, I knew I was very far from knowing everything there was to know about jazz, that I began to give myself an education. Both before I met with him, and then while I was meeting with him, and then in the years afterwards. I came to understand, I came to know more about his music and the great musicians who he worked with, their music, and it is truly, it's a great American story, jazz, and it's a story that has fallen on hard times a bit these days. Jazz has become a little ghettoized. A lot of people love it still, but a lot of people don't know much about it.
Yeah, somebody refurbished a record player for me, and I went to the record store, and I just happened to come across, this is maybe about a year or so ago, I guess it was a reissued album of Kind of Blue, and I bought it, and I put it on, and I don't know, it was the place I was in my life, or it was a Friday night or a Tuesday. I don't know what was going on, but I put it on, and this album spoke to me like very few albums ever have. It came out in 1959, still very relevant today, still great even today, correct?
It is a timeless album. That word gets the word timeless gets overused. It gets used so much. They talk about wristwatches and luggage and God knows what else that's timeless. But Kind of Blue really is. They recorded it in March and April of 1959, and it sounds as fresh today as the day it was recorded. It's a mysterious album, in many ways very quiet and simple album, but it is the spell of Miles Davis, the genius of Miles Davis, and the two geniuses that worked with him on the album, John Coltrane, the great saxophonist, and Bill Evans, the great pianist. There were three other musicians who were excellent musicians, but these three were really the geniuses, and Miles was the leader of the album, came up with this whole concept of simplifying jazz. He felt jazz had gotten too complicated, and when you listen to this magnificent album, its simplicity just, it takes you in and enfolds you and kind of hypnotizes you. It's so beautiful.
Is it true that when they recorded Kind of Blue in 1959, is it true that they went into the studio and with very little notes and virtually no practice just sat down and started playing and they just recorded whatever came out?
Yeah, well, and the astonishing thing is, Miles had written out a few notes for each song he wanted to record. A little bit about the songs that he wanted to record that day, and then the next recording session. But the astonishing, yes, what you say is almost completely true. The astonishing thing about that album is that except for one song on the album, every full take they recorded was a first take. It never happens. It never ever happens. Every full take was a first take. They played it straight through, no mistakes. It's just it's imponderable. It's inconceivable.
It's a testament to the artists, but it's also a testament to the genre, right? I mean, jazz lends itself to being original and sitting down and playing it, and that's how they were feeling that day. And I guess that's what sort of makes it one of the best albums of all time. It was a time and place, a moment in time that they captured.
Yeah, jazz lends itself to being original and lends itself to being spontaneous, but, every musician can have a bad night, and not every performance is a great performance, and sometimes solos go on too long, sometimes a player will hit a wrong note, sometimes the mood just isn't right. As Bill Evans, the pianist on the album, said, you go into a recording session on Wednesday morning and you never know whether it's going to be good or not. Certainly you don't know whether it's going to be great. These guys didn't know it was going to be great, but somehow that arrow just hit the bullseye on those 2 days.
James Kaplan is our guest. He wrote a book that is getting rave reviews, national bestseller. It's called 3 Shades of Blue. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and the Lost Empire of Cool. We'll come back, talk more about that. And also he wrote what many consider the definitive biography on Frank Sinatra called The Chairman. Frank would have been 110 years old today. More about Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and Frank Sinatra with our guest, James Kaplan, in a moment. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
If you're looking for a book that is on the list of best books of the year, you'll do pretty well with 3 Shades of Blue, written by our guest tonight, James Kaplan. 3 Shades of Blue, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and the Lost Empire of Cool. It talks about and goes into detail about the album Kind of Blue, which many consider the best album ever recorded. Here we have a little clip. Here is Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and others with the song from Kind of Blue, So What? You talked about James Kaplan, and then it goes on from there. I want to ask you about the dynamic of those three. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, two black men in 1959, sit down with a white piano player, Bill Evans, to do this album. I find it fascinating that the three of them come from three different backgrounds, right? And black and white coming together to record this album. Talk about that relationship for a moment.
Yeah, it was a very controversial move for Miles Davis to hire this white piano player. A lot of black audiences were outraged. A lot of black were outraged because at that point Miles had the most successful small jazz band in the country. But Miles had heard something in Bill Evans's playing. He had heard something great and heard something that he wanted, a certain sound. Evans was, like Miles, a great student of the believe it or not, of the European modernists, Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, Ravel especially. They both loved Ravel. And so Bill Evans was able to get those modern classical sounds, those beautiful chords and colors, into the very simple jazz arrangements that Miles was creating, and the result was magic.
How did the album do when it first came out?
It had a slow build. When it first came out, a lot of people were puzzled by it. A number of critics said it was too quiet. They didn't understand it. They didn't think it was powerful. They didn't think it was strong. But then there were a few critics who said, this is really something great. And people began to understand what was going on, began to feel the spell of the album. The sales built and built and built and have never slowed down. It's unbelievable in the 66 years since it was released.
I know today music is streamed on your phone and on the internet, right? It's gone through different iterations. AM radio, cassettes, CDs, now streaming. I got to say that an album has, to me, the best way to listen to this album on a record with a needle on a record player. Would you agree or disagree?
I love the sound of vinyl, but I'll tell you a funny thing. I've had any number of people come up to me and tell me that they have bought Kind of Blue in every medium in which it was ever released. So starting with vinyl and then going on to who knows what, 8-track, cassette, CD, and streaming after that. So, but I hear you, McGraw. It is a magical experience to drop that needle onto that vinyl and hear the warm and lush and full and deep, mysterious sound of Kind of Blue.
What happened to jazz? If this album comes out at the beginning of 1960, right? It has a slow build. It's still great today. What happened to jazz? How come jazz can't find a commercial audience even today?
Well, the couple of things happened to jazz. One is there's a great young trumpeter around these days, a jazz trumpeter named Nicholas Payton, and he brought out a sort of broadside about 10 years ago called On Why Jazz Isn't Cool Anymore. And one of the things he said in this broadside was jazz separated itself from popular music. Big mistake. So jazz in 1959-60 began to get more and more esoteric, more and more experimental, maybe less and less tuneful. It had sort of stopped being dancing music around in the beginning of the 1950s. And once people couldn't dance to it, they had to sit or stand and listen to it. And a lot of people found what was coming out after 59-60 decreasingly listenable. But the big thing, the neutron bomb that dropped on jazz happened on the evening of February 9th, 1964, on the Ed Sullivan Show, when 4 young lads from Liverpool hit the stage. And the morning after the Beatles performed on the Ed Sullivan Show that Sunday night, the following morning, every teenager in the United States who had been trying to learn how to play trumpet, jazz trumpet, went out and bought an electric guitar and could play rock and roll with just 3 chords. So, pardon me, rock and roll had a lot to do with the death of jazz, the decline of jazz.
Yeah. Miles Davis, let's talk about him because you talk about cool, right? I mean, he's he is. You look up cool in the dictionary, and it's Miles Davis, and he had an interesting life.
Yeah.
He had a tough life, hard life, lived hard, played hard, died hard. But in 1959, right? I mean, the book he's at his zenith, right? I mean, that's a moment in time that Miles Davis's his coolness is off the charts.
Yeah, he had been at his zenith really since 1954 when he kicked heroin. He was a bad heroin addict for 5 years, from 1949 to 1950. Himself up. He got a contract with Columbia Records, the biggest label in the country, and started making some real money. Miles always was about selling records. He really wanted to sell records. He loved making money. He loved the fine things in life. An interesting thing about Miles Davis is, unlike so many black jazz musicians, Miles was a rich boy. His father was a very successful dentist in St. Louis. And so Miles grew up wearing clothes from Brooks Brothers, riding horses on his father's farm. Didn't matter. He didn't have to grow up poor to really feel that music deeply and to know it deeply. But he was a restless guy. I call him the Picasso of American music. He could never stick with the same style for very long. He was always changing, constantly shifting from one style to another. And yeah, he was the essence of cool. He loved fine automobiles, fine wine, beautiful women. He loved the good life, and he did live hard, but he lived a lot longer than a lot of young jazz musicians, so many of whom succumbed to drugs. Miles passed in 1991 at age 65. He was a very old 65, but that's pretty old for a jazz musician.
James Kaplan, our guest. The book out, 3 Shades of Blue. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and the Lost Empire of Cool. We're just getting started. It's also another cool guy's birthday today. Frank Sinatra would have been 110 years, and James Kaplan wrote not one but 2 books on the chairman of the board. He was the voice and the chairman. We'll talk about those books and Frank Sinatra coming up in a moment. James Kaplan's nice enough to stick around to talk a little Frank Sinatra his way. America at Night. Stay right there. We're just getting started. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
I like a new Lincoln with all of its class.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Let's talk a little Frank Sinatra. Today, happy birthday, Frank. You would have been 110 years old today. And our guest has written the definitive book on Frank Sinatra. He's written 2, one called The Voice, the other one called The Chairman. James Kaplan, as we transition from your other book about Miles Davis to Frank Sinatra, what was their relationship like? Did they know each other? Did their paths cross along the way?
They had great respect for each other, McGraw. Even though they're very different cats, they were similar in some ways. They were both short men, small men, pugnacious. They both could use their fists. Miles worked out in a gym, learned boxing, and was a pretty good boxer. Same with Frank. Both of them kind of had a chip on his shoulder. Each of them had a chip on his shoulder about growing up in a sort of despised minority in America, and they were both geniuses. And believe it or not, now and then they would cross paths at a New York saloon owned by a friend of Frank's named Jilly Rizzo, and now and then they would have a drink together at the bar at Jilly's. Great respect for each other.
Did they ever perform together? Did they ever record anything together?
No, it didn't happen. Frank was a Count Basie man. Frank called himself a saloon singer. He loved those. He loved the swing numbers that Count Basie played. He loved he loved the torch songs and the sad ballads. Miles cruised through one style after another, but Miles was constantly experimental where his music was concerned. Miles did not often accompany singers at all. Miles was really his own singing voice in a way. The sound of Miles's trumpet, especially when he used that harmon mute, had that warm and distant sound at the same time. So Miles's trumpet was singing a song, and I think in a lot of ways it would have conflicted backing a singer. Sinatra loved a good, strong band behind him.
So you write two books, not one. You wrote The Voice, and then you wrote The Chairman. Was there so much, Frank, you couldn't put into one book, or you had so much fun you had to go back in?
You know, Frank Sinatra was born December 12th, 1915 in Hoboken, New Jersey, in a Hoboken, New Jersey that was still largely paved with cobblestones, where you still see horse-drawn wagons in the streets, ice wagons and stuff like that. It was really, 1915 was really kind of the end of the 19th century in a lot of ways. He was born then, and he died on May 14th, 1998. The night of the Seinfeld finale. So there you have an American life, right? From cobblestones to Seinfeld. Frank was really the American century, the 20th century. He knew everybody. Anybody who was anybody knew Frank Sinatra. He knew everybody who was anybody. And his life intersected with so many great people and great events. There's just a huge amount to write about. And he also had two distinct careers. He was, during World War II, he was this gigantic young success, and then his career went down the toilet in the late 1940s, and he had the greatest comeback in American show business history when he won the Oscar for From Here to Eternity.
So what happened? How did he fall from grace? How do you get that big and fall that low?
Well, if you could call it not just one, but multiple self-inflicted wounds. Frank loved women. Frank loved women. He was married to a beautiful woman named Nancy Barbados Sinatra. She was beautiful. She was intelligent. She was classy. But Frank could not help himself. Could not stop himself stepping out with all kinds of beautiful women. And when he moved his family to Hollywood in the 1940s, suddenly he was being seen with movie stars all over town, and the tabloids were printing pictures of him dancing with Lana Turner and stuff like that. And then, listen, I could go on and on, McGraw, but the other thing that Frank did was in 1947, he made a little trip down to Havana to break bread with and entertain the fellows at what was the biggest mafia conference of all time in Havana, Cuba, at the Hotel Nacional. He was cited by an American columnist, started writing about Frank rubbing elbows with all these crooks. And suddenly here's Frank Sinatra, who is stepping out on his wife. He's hanging out with mafiosi, and the style, American popular music began to change styles, and his records weren't selling anymore. So he gets dropped by his record label, he gets dropped by his management, by his movie studio, and he is nowhere. And then he marries Ava Gardner. That is chapter 2 of many chapters.
So he deserves two books. One's The Voice, the other one's The Chairman. I got to ask you about the famous Mario Puzo rumor. Mario Puzo writes The Godfather. He has a singer in there that's supposedly based on Frank. They meet at a bar or a restaurant. Yeah, and Frank goes after Mario Puzo at a bar because how dare you call me out in this book? Is that a true story?
Yeah, that's a true story, and Puzo told it to me himself. I knew Mario Puzo. He's a wonderful man, a wonderful writer. And The Godfather is a wonderful book, and it's a work of fiction. There was Sinatra got the role in From Here to Eternity not by having a horse's head put in some producer's bed, but by sending his lover at the time, was to become his wife, Ava Gardner, the most beautiful woman in the world, to go meet with the head of Columbia Pictures and tell this guy, Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia Pictures, that if Harry Cohn gave Frank a screen test, she would give Harry Cohn a free picture. She wouldn't charge him anything for it. Harry Cohn, who had a reputation, looked Ava Gardner up and down and gave Frank the screen test, and he got the job, and he won the Oscar, and he came back.
That's a great story. We were talking about Miles Davis and the best album ever recorded last segment, My Way, written by Paul Anka, sung by many, many people, but it's Frank's song. Is it true that when Paul Anka debuted it for Frank was lukewarm and almost didn't want to record My Way?
And true, but Frank hated the song. He hated it his whole life. It was his number one request from audiences, and Frank felt Sinatra was a genius. Sinatra was a musical genius, and that was. Other biographies had been written about Sinatra before I wrote mine, and they all talked about the women and the mob and the fistfights. But I ran into musicians who had worked with him, and they called him a musical genius. And I thought, there's an interesting angle on Frank Sinatra. He was a musical genius, and he knew songs that were great and only very good and only fair and only poor. He knew that My Way could be a popular success, but he felt it was boastful. Frank had a great sensitivity about the lyrics that he sang. He studied them deeply before he ever recorded or sang a song in performance, and that's why a lot of the reason his performances were so great. He really felt the lyrics he was singing, and he felt the lyrics of My Way were boastful, were bragging. There were two songs he couldn't stand that people loved him to sing, My Way and Strangers in the Night.
What songs did he like to sing? What was his favorite songs?
Oh, so many great ballads in the wee small hours of the morning, so many great up-tempo songs, Luck Be a Lady Tonight, Ring-a-Ding-Ding, oh my God. And then later on in his career, when rock and roll hit the scene and Frank started feeling that he was maybe being outpaced and overshadowed by this new style of music, he starts making some new successes with songs like Summer Wind, and Frank could lend class to classy and great songs. He could really give songs a depth that other singers couldn't give them, and that kept happening almost to the very end of his career. He performed his last concert when he was 77 years old in 1992.
Do you have a favorite Frank Sinatra song?
I have a number of favorites. I can't name a single one but I'll tell you a moment. Listen, wishy-washy, but I will tell you a moment when I was doing my research for the second volume of my Sinatra biography, and I spent 10 years on those two books, 5 years apiece. There was a lot of time with that little guy, and I still get goosebumps when I hear him sing. I still get goosebumps. But I was going out to LA to do research, to interview people for the book, and I'm landing at LAX late at night. It must have been about 1 a.m. And you know how it is when you're coming in slowly over a city at night, and you're seeing all those streets down below, all the orange street lights, and you're descending slowly. And I had my headphones on, and I'm listening to Frank singing in the wee small hours of the morning. And, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking of the moment. Such feeling, such passion, such depth, such pathos in that song. Nobody could do that with a song the way that Sinatra could.
Sinatra to me is great for lots of reasons, but he somehow is able to capture the everyman, the guy down on his luck, the guy jilted at the bar, right? I mean, even though he's walking with kings and queens and presidents, and he's the chairman of the board, he has that personal touch.
He knew he has that personal touch because he knew what it was to be down. Career went down the toilet in the late 1940s. There was one night when the singer Eddie Fisher, once married to Elizabeth Taylor, singer Eddie Fisher was very popular in 1949, spotted Frank Sinatra walking across Times Square in New York City, and nobody recognized him. That's how low he had sunk. Nobody wanted him anymore. He knew how that felt. He knew how it was to be rejected by Ava Gardner, who kicked him to the curb because his career was such a loser. He knew what that felt like, and he put it into his music.
James Kaplan is our guest. He wrote The Chairman and the Voice. It's Frank Sinatra's 110th birthday today. He also wrote the book, Three Shades of Blue. Both of these books, all three of these books are out now. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and The Lost Empire of Cool. I have to ask you, this is Larry King's old perch. I have to ask you, we're getting ready for this show today, and you told me that you interviewed Larry King. You went to his house and interviewed Larry King about Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
You got plenty of time. Tell that story.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to tell you is that I walk into Larry King's house in Beverly Hills, and there in the foyer, in the foyer of Larry King's house in Beverly Hills, is the most enormous Christmas tree I have ever seen in my life. I swear to heaven, McGraw, that Christmas tree was bigger than the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. It went up about 6 stories. And there's Larry King. You know, Larry King looked like Larry King. He looked very much like Larry King. And we went, and he was very hospitable. We sat down in his living room, and I was brought a snack and a beverage, and we talked. I turned on my little recorder, and we talked Sinatra. And Larry King would not say, I wasn't looking for gossip. I wasn't looking for dirt. It wasn't the point. I started with this premise that Sinatra was a musical genius. And Larry King certainly agreed with me. He certainly agreed that every time he had ever talked to Sinatra, every time he had ever interviewed him, it had been an honor and a great occasion, and that Frank gave him a great interview. Because among many other facets of Sinatra's personality, he was a brilliant man. He was a highly, highly intelligent man. He loved words. He did the New York Times crossword puzzle in ink. Encyclopedia. He kept pace with the news. He knew what was going on. He knew how to talk. He knew how to think. And with the charisma he had and the career he had and he made the perfect guest for Larry King. Larry King idolized Sinatra, and who didn't, really?
Yeah. 2 more quick questions, and then we'll let you go. What did he make of Phil Hartman's depiction of him on Saturday Night Live?
Are you sure you're not talking about Joe Piscopo?
Well, Joe Piscopo, and then Phil Hartman did one too.
Let's put it this way: he was not in love with either one.
All right,
James in love with either one. He didn't. He had a sense of humor, but he didn't. He had. Frank had a limited sense of humor. He idolized Dean Martin because Dean Martin was funny. Frank wasn't so funny.
There you go. The book is called The Chairman. The other one is called The Voice, the definitive biography on the chairman of the board. Frank Sinatra would have been 110 years old today. And, of course, we were talking earlier about James Kaplan's other book that's out now this year on all the New York Times bestseller lists and top 10 books of the year, Three Shades of Blue, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and The Lost Empire of Cool. He also wrote a book on John McEnroe. We got to get you back to talk about that at some point. James Kaplan, thank you for making time for us. Great conversation. Best of luck down the road.
Thank you so much, McGraw. It was a pleasure. It was a joy talking with you.
America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
With all of its class.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Got a story for you about Frank Sinatra. So a couple of months ago, I was at a local watering hole, and I had commandeered the jukebox, and I was playing a set of Frank, if you will. And I always end with New York, New York, and then I end with My Way. So I get finished playing My Way, and this younger woman walks up to me, and she says, Are you in charge of the jukebox? I was like, yeah, I'm in charge of the jukebox. She goes, I love that song, My Way. And I looked at her, I thought kindred spirits because she loved Frank, and I loved Frank, and right, we're having this moment. And she says, that song is from Sing 2. That's my favorite song. Sing 2. Frank's known by the younger generation as that song from Sing 2. By the way, if you're keeping score at home, there was an album called L.A. Is My Lady, where Frank Sinatra and Quincy Jones had an orchestra. And on that album, L.A. Is My Lady, there is a rendition of Mac the Knife. Of all the Frank songs, that's up there as one of my all-time favorites. Not very well known, but it's L.A. Is My Lady. That's the album, and Mac the Knife with Frank Sinatra. That's the one. Hey, special thanks to James Kaplan, who changed his schedule around tonight for us to be on. His two books, The Voice and The Chairman by Frank, and then 3 Shades of Blue. Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and The Lost Empire of Cool. It's a fun hour talking about two really cool people from the 20th century. Stay right there. We're just getting started on a Friday night. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight, behind the stick, is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's Friday night, hour number 2. Stay right there. We got lots more to get to. We're going to unveil a brand new game show on America at Night a little bit later on in the show. Hollywood Executive for a Day, where we will have Theo Lewis Clark come up with 3 movies. One of them is real. 2 of them are made up from the creative mind of Theo Lewis Clark. You are going to have to determine which is the real movie and which 2 are fake. And chances are he'll fool you every time. But this half of the first hour, there is a new book out from our guest, Jared Horvath, who is well-respected in the world of academics. He has appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, Harvard Business Review, PBS's Nova, and he has written a book about learning in the classroom. It is called The Digital Delusion, How Classroom Technology Harms Our Kids' Learning and How to Help Them Thrive Again. Dr. Jared Horvath, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Let's first talk about this. This is not anti-technology, right? You don't want people to think you're against technology, but you talk about the screens. Talk about the difference there.
Yeah, so I think I've been called a Luddite quite often in my life, and you know what? I'll wear it, whatever. But my focus has always been on learning. And what is the best way to help kids learn so that we can develop and thrive with each other? So I always say my book isn't anti-tech, it's pro-learning. I'm looking at what is going to be best for our kids, and if it happens to not be a screen, then not because I have something against the screen, it's because I'm trying to fight for something a little bit better.
Yeah, all screens are created differently. You've got a TV screen. First you had the overhead projector, which I guess technically was a screen, right? Then you had films, right? You had the drop down screen over the blackboard.
Yeah.
Now you have big screen TVs. Now you have tablets. Now you have phones. Now you have digital watches. I mean, what are we talking about when we talk about screens?
That's good. So what we're really zeroing in on is student-facing internet-connected devices. So basically, any device a student has access to that they can also then jump online. So this will be your laptop, this will be a tablet, exactly like you said, a phone, maybe that Apple Watch, anything that allows them to do more than just the task at hand. That's the tech we're looking at in this book.
And so what's the premise? Why are these screens, which were lauded as a great teaching tool, in your opinion, have become the problem?
Ooh, so believe it or not, we've had data for well over 6 decades now on computers, not internet. The internet stuff came in around 25 years ago, but the data has consistently shown that anytime we bring a computer device into learning goes down. We've seen it on international tests. We've seen it on grade data. We've seen it on teacher reports. We've seen it on cognitive tests. Believe it or not, Gen Z is the first generation in recorded history to underperform their parents on basically every single cognitive measure we have. Since the 1900s, early 1900s, every generation has been smarter, better memory, better attention, and we always kind of chalked this up to school. The more time kids spent in school, the more their cognitive abilities went up, and that's what we always wanted. But right around 2002, somehow the two decoupled, where today kids are spending more time in school than we were, but their memory is worse, their attention is worse, their IQ is worse, their creative abilities are worse, and Gen Alpha, the younger kids, are even worse than Gen Z. So we had to say what changed, and it wasn't really pedagogy, it wasn't the school, it was largely the tool we brought in to help school. This thing that everyone said was going to revolutionize education actually ended up driving a wedge right through it and made everything a lot worse.
We recently had somebody on the show, maybe it was a week or so ago, and I was looking at charts, and it looks like that the test scores for math and science and were reading were kind of, they were going up to about 2013. And then 2013, it started going down, and then COVID, it just crashed. And the guest we had on said, I said, what happened in 2013? Because they were going up. And he said, well, a lot of people will think it's phones. Well, I am not an expert in any of this, but I would argue the phone that's what it was in 2013, right? Kids all of a sudden started getting their parents' iPhones after their parents got the next upgrade in iPhone, and that's when the test scores started going down.
What you see, too, is right around 2013 was when schools, especially around the U.S., really started to adopt one-to-one computing technology. So if you actually track back before 2013, we were doing tests where we would ask students, hey, how many hours a day do you use a computer at school for learning purposes? And all the way back to 2004, we would see the more kids used computers at school, their scores were always lower. Now, on aggregate, things would look good because we had more kids not using screens than were using screens. But you could assume right around 2012, 2013, that's when the pendulum kind of swung in the other direction. And now we have more kids using computers than not. And that's another reason why we've seen a drop. So by all means, it's a complex. Phones are a part of it. The way we raise our kids is a part of it. Social milieu. But realistically, the data has always been there, just quietly underneath everything, saying, nope, as soon as we started teaching from screens, we saw the dip. We just weren't looking for it.
So what is it about the screen? Is it that they're busy on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, or they're using AI to write their term papers and they're not learning anything? I mean, what is it about the screen that they're doing that is so terrible?
See, I think that's the best question. Is data doesn't really do much, right? I mean, if you think about something like asbestos, we knew for decades that people who worked with asbestos would get cancer at higher rates than people who didn't, but no one cared. No one did anything about it. Leaded gasoline, same thing. It was only when researchers came up with mechanisms, when they were able to say, this is why it's happening. Because asbestos can break off and little chunks can lodge in your lungs and cause tumors, that's the cancer cause. Once you have a mechanism, then people actually start acting. That's when things change. So that was my big focus on this book, was let's figure out how many mechanisms. Why is tech bad for learning? Is it how we're using it? Is it the machine itself? And what you find is by and large, the big theme, the big take home will be the way digital tech works is basically anti-biology. It works against the way we have evolved for 150,000 years to actually learn. So just as an example, if you take something like reading, right? A huge aspect of reading is space. So anytime human beings make a memory for something new, that memory will become stamped with a three-dimensional location. Where in space did this event occur? And later in your life, you can think back, use that space to reconstruct the memory. When we read from books or paper, every word has a clear three-dimensional location. Until this book I'm holding right now burns into dust, the word "the" will be 10 pages in, left page, top left-hand side. It ain't going nowhere. And that's why any of your listeners who are avid readers, they'll know if you finish a book, you might not remember every word you read verbatim, but you certainly will remember where in the book certain events occurred, and you can almost flip immediately to them. Now, when we read on a screen, screens don't have a three-dimensional location. You read a book on a screen, the word "the" will start at the bottom, go through the middle, go out the top. An entire aspect of human memory just gets dumped. So once we read on a screen, we start learning less, we remember less, we start doing what's called skimming. Basically, we realize we're not holding on to anything, so we just kind of glance our eyes. And it's because the tool simply doesn't respond to how human memory, attention, how we function.
Dr. Jared Horvath is our guest. The new book is called The Digital Delusion. A lot more to get to. I want to talk to you about social media. And, of course, now some of these schools are banning cell phones. Some of these schools are banning screens. And, of course, Australia just banned all of social media. We'll get to that with Dr. Jared Horvath. His book out, getting a lot of attention. The Digital Delusion. America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Our guest, Dr. Jared Horvath, has taught at Harvard University, Harvard Medical School, and the University of Melbourne. He's out with a new book called The Digital Delusion, How Classroom Technology is Harming Our Kids' Learning. Doctor, I knew something was up when the story came out a couple of years ago about Silicon Valley and the people who are programming and writing the code for all of these social media sites and all of these newfangled billion-dollar websites and Facebooks and everything else. When the story came out that the executives make their nannies sign contracts that they're not allowed to bring screens into the homes of their children while they go to work and devise ways for our children to get addicted to screens.
Yep. And that addiction hits hard because you got to assume the way we get addicted to screens now is what's called the attention economy. Basically, they're going to flash as many things as they can, as quickly as they can at you to just get you looking long enough. But the problem with that is the worst thing you can do for learning, which, well, if we're going to say the least non-abusive thing you could do for learning is what we call multitasking. Anytime you flit your attention that quickly, memory goes down, accuracy goes down, concentration lapses, everything just basically falls apart. So I think these people who design these tools realize, look, we're going to get paid if people pay attention, but the way they pay attention on the screen is the exact opposite way I need you to pay attention if I want you to learn something. So what's good enough for them to make money is not good enough for their kids if they want their kids to learn. And I think they recognize that easy.
Yeah, you've quite a bit of association with Australia. They just banned social media for kids under the age of 16. There's some people gasp. I applauded it. What do you make of it? How did they get this through? And what do you think is going to happen because of this?
I got to tell you, I lived there for 12 years, and I am shocked that they got this through because usually the government there is as slow as molasses. But my goodness, this worked, and I applaud it 100% because for all the people who are against it, the argument is always, well, how are they going to interact? How are they going to talk? We don't have any data on how they're going to survive. We have 2,000 years of data showing how kids survive if they don't have social media. It's pretty easy and obvious. And I think if you go to just straight biology, one of the most interesting things we've learned is when you interact with another person live, together, face-to-face, your body will release chemicals that make you feel safe, make you bond, and those are the healthy things that you want. When you interact with somebody online, your body doesn't release those chemicals. It's like our biology simply does not recognize internet-based communication as actual interaction. And it starts releasing a different set of chemicals which make you feel lonely, isolated, and depressed. In a very real sense, our biology doesn't recognize computers as actual human interaction. And so the more our kids were using that to substitute for actually going to the playground, hanging out with their friends, the lonelier they were becoming and the worse their learning became because of it. So I am 100% on board with that.
Here's what I don't understand. When you and I were kids, we couldn't go see a PG-13 movie because we were 12. We weren't allowed to buy records, right? They had parental notifications on records because the language was too inappropriate. Now, parents don't let their kids out of their sight. They won't let them walk down the street. You can't play stickball in the park because you might be abducted. Go sit in your room on a phone. I mean, there's every psychopath and child predator trying to knock on your child's door through your phone, and these parents just allow this to happen. I don't know how can they not see the harm that these phones are doing for their children?
This is the culture we live in. I think they're being fed a story from the very machine. The people who invent these tools know that the parents are using these tools too, and so they just tell them all the good stuff. There's, it's scary out there, but don't worry, your kid will have fun on this video game. And I think we just get caught in the tech echo chamber. But like you said, any parent who kind of steps back and watches starts to notice, this isn't my kid. Like, what happened to my nice, happy, fun, go-lucky kid? And one of the crazy things you'll see once you start taking tech out of the home, whether that means no computers in your room or no computers on the weekend, whatever that is, you'll start to see a reversion. You'll start to say, there's my kid again. There's the activity. And once they get hanging out with people live and in person, everything changes. It's the healthiest thing we can do.
The book is called The Digital Delusion, Dr. Jared Horvath. What's the reaction been from teachers, from parents, from the community at large about the book?
Oh, it's been so good. I think especially from teachers is, I would argue, so I work primarily with schools now, and I say about 70% of teachers are totally done with tech. If you've been in the classroom for longer than a decade, you know what it used to be like, and you know what it's like today, and you are over it. But the problem is most teachers just don't have a voice. It's the superintendents, it's the leaders that make the decision about tech and what they're supposed to use. And if a teacher says no, they get fired. So I think the biggest quiet group are the teachers. They're fighting for this. But I think once we hit a threshold, once the parents really catch on and start saying, wait, can I opt my kid out of tech? And several states are going to start passing bills, or at least propose bills, that allow parents to say, no, I'm not going to let my kid use tech at school. And once we hit a threshold there, watch, so many teachers will stand up and say, this has been horrible for school. This has been absolutely horrible for learning.
I got about 2 minutes left, Dr. Jared Horvath. The book is called The Digital Delusion. We'll talk about AI and what's this new one, this whole companion AI, where they create these digital friends online who then walk them down a path for all sorts of nefarious things, including suicide. We are allowing this, how this is going on. You're on the front lines on this. I don't know how, again, they allow this, but they wouldn't allow us to go to a PG-13 movie.
And did you see they just Times Person of the Year now are the people who made AI. They're wonderful people. Here's when it comes to just straight learning, here's what you got to remember. AI, frankly, it exists for no reason. The people who invented large language models flat out will tell you, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just seeing if we could do it. And then they gave it to the public and said, you tell us what it's good for. And I honestly, I don't think it's good for anything. I always call AI the tool nobody asked for, solving problems nobody had. It's just totally random. But if you think about it from a learning standpoint, AI, the one thing it might be good for is what's called cognitive offloading. If you're an expert, you can use AI to do something you don't want to do, simply because you already know how to do it. That means you can vet the output easily. But kids don't know how to do things yet. They're learning how to become experts. So when you use a tool built to do the job for you, in order to learn that job, you basically learn nothing. So the more schools say, hey, we have to bring AI in, it's the sure shot to make sure your kids will not become creative, will not have critical thinking. They need to lock down with the original material.
Dr. Jared Horvath has been our guest, Harvard professor, medical school at Harvard. His book is The Digital Delusion, getting a lot of attention out there. Doctor, thanks for joining us on a Friday night.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You got it. Stay right there. When we come back, we will debut a new segment, Hollywood Exec for a Day. It's a game show Friday night on America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, welcome back. It's hour 2 on a Friday night, and we're going to debut a new segment today. This is either going to go really good or really bad. It worked well in rehearsal. We'll wait to see how it does live on the air. Okay, we're going to call this segment Hollywood Executive for a Day. And here's how it works. We have brought in our dear friend Theo Lewis Clark, is a radio star waiting to happen. Theo, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely here. And by the way, it can never be bad when you and I get together, McGraw.
Oh,
it
okay.
can't go really bad. It's got to go really good.
You've just jinxed the whole thing. Okay, here's how the game works. Theo Lewis Clark has come up with 3 movies or 3 projects. 2 of them are created by himself. One of them has actually been greenlit by an executive in Hollywood, and a movie or a project has been made. We have to determine...
Just the opposite, though. 2 of them are real. One of them is from Theo's world.
Yeah. Is that the way we did it before? We have to guess the fake one. Okay, all right. I apologize. 2 of them are real. 2 of them are real. One of them's fake. See, this whole segment, this worked in a rehearsal perfectly. Okay, and so we have to pick the real one. Right, we have to pick the fake one. Right.
That's right.
And there's 2 real ones. Okay, now, to play the game, I'm going to choose, but we need 2 other contestants. So we have invoked our executive director, Alex, to join us on the air. Alex, are you there?
I'm standing by.
Okay, Alex is there. And we also have the man behind the stick, the man who is running the board, the man who is in charge of all the sound, Richard Good. Richard, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, all right. So we'll each have our own pick, and then Theo Lewis Clark will then unveil who is the winner and who is the loser, and that's how you play Hollywood Exec for a Day. You ready to go?
Let's go.
Absolutely. Now, Alex and Richard, I suggest you guys take a couple of notes, too. That'll help you.
Yes, take some notes. All right, Theo, take it away.
Okay, is it number 1? A young man wanders around a post-apocalyptic wasteland with his telepathic dog, and he happens upon a mysterious underground community where the leader's daughter seduces him into the group, leaving the dog to survive on his own? Or is it number 2? Twin brothers who happen to be trapeze artists in a famous circus, they purchased a winning lottery ticket in a little town that they're performing in. The other circus acts find out, and they steal it from them. The brothers take murderous revenge and become each other's alibi. Or is it number 3? He's a scientist and a criminal mastermind posing as a patio furniture designer who infuses self-adhesive GPS microchips in the seat cushion to track the whereabouts of the rich and famous for kidnapping and burglary purposes, of course. So, is it number 1, the man wandering around the post-apocalyptic wasteland? Is it number 2, these twin brothers, trapeze artists, coming to the lottery ticket? Or is it the scientist and the criminal mastermind tracking the rich and famous with his new technology?
All right.
Who's going first?
We'll go with you, Alex. You go first. What do you think? Is it door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3?
So I'm leaning door number 1, the post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Why is that?
Because it sounded believable to me up until the end, where the guy leaves his dog to wander the wasteland alone. Because
you're like, who could do that?
American audiences love an animal, and it feels like they would never never let that happen at the end of a movie.
All right. So Alex has got number one. Richard, what do you think?
I'm gonna say number two. I'm gonna say that the brothers that found a lottery ticket, it just don't seem legit. It just don't seem like something that would regularly happen.
The flying trapeze twins buy a lottery ticket and then go on a murderous spree because the other trapeze artist stole their lottery ticket.
Sounds crazy.
You don't think that's
real, Richard?
Nah.
That doesn't sound real. Okay. Well, Richard goes number three, and I will make it a complete sweep. It's clearly number three. There's no
Richard
way.
Said number two.
I'm sorry. Richard said number two. I say number three because there's no way anyone in Hollywood ever signed off on a script where somebody puts GPS in patio furniture to determine the whereabouts of people. That is the dumbest idea for a movie ever. So it's got to be number three is the fake one. The other two are real.
Okay, let's do it. So, Alex, you said it's number one. The young man wanders around a post-apocalyptic wasteland with his telepathic dog and happens upon a mysterious underground community where the leader's daughter seduces him into their group, leaving the dog to survive on his own. That is a movie, 1975, Don Johnson. It's called A Boy and His Dog. Oh, yeah. He left him up there to scorch on the apocalyptic world. Yeah, I love the sound effects. We'll get some theme music and the music bed. This show's going to be great already. Okay, Richard, you said the twin brothers.
Hold on a second. Don Johnson's in this movie called A Boy and His Dog?
Johnson, 1975, baby, when they didn't care about pets.
All right, fair enough. All right, go on.
All right, Richard, you said it's between Richard and McGraw. Is it Richard, twin brothers, trapeze artist, and a famous circus? The lottery ticket? That's a real movie, Richard, 1947. It's called Dual Alibi, 1947, which means McGraw wins. Scientist and a criminal mastermind posing as a patio furniture designer who infused himself with heat of GPS microchips in the seat cushions to track the whereabouts of the rich and famous for kidnapping and burglary.
Man.
That's on Theo's World, and it's called Have a Seat.
Man, that's wild.
Have a seat, baby.
That's crazy.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
We should also say that Theo did not tip me off. Theo has never tipped me off. And if Theo ever did tip me off, we would never play this game.
I would never tip you off. My goal is to beat you every time.
Yeah, you would actually prefer me to lose every single time. So
absolutely.
There you go. All right. Yes. Hey, Richard, we got a couple minutes. You got a little entertainment we should be paying attention to this weekend?
No, next time. I'll have it next time for you.
All right, fair enough. How's everything
we didn't know what we were going to do. I thought we were just going to do the game show, but okay. We'll be back again towards the end of the hour.
How's everything else going? How's your dad doing?
Man, he's doing great, man. He was just here.
Okay, good.
He is doing great. 88 and super happy.
And the grandkids?
Oh, yeah, the grandkids. I'm getting them a new book, that Dr. Horvath, Digital Delusion. Oh, yeah. I'm getting them that book. My grandkids are 11, 8, and 5. So I'm going to get that book for their parents, my son and my daughter-in-law. Excellent.
There you go. Theo Lewis Clark, Hollywood exec for a day. That's a pretty good debut. We'll talk to you next Friday.
It's just going to get better. You better believe it.
Thank you, Theo.
Bye
Have
now.
a good day. There you go.
Thank you, guys.
There you go. Yeah, who would have thought Don Johnson was in a movie about a telepathic dog walking around in the underground trying to save the world. So there you go. All right, that's how you play TV exec for a day. It's Friday night, and it's a little open phones. We'll have some conversation. We'll open up the phone lines right now. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Whatever you want to talk about. We'll start to open phones a little early here tonight, and then all hour number 3. But earlier in the night, we talked to James Kaplan, who wrote the book about Frank Sinatra. The man is cool. It would have been his 110th birthday today. He also has that new book out about Miles Davis and the greatest record ever. That many say the greatest record ever recorded, Kind of Blue. And then we'll take some phone calls. Lots to talk about. Nothing to talk about. Baseball off season. The hot stove's getting heated up a little bit. We could talk politics. We could talk to the show from earlier in the night. Whatever you guys want to talk about, the hour is all yours. We will come back and kick things off. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, it's Friday night. We got a couple of phones we'll sneak in here before the top of the hour. And then, of course, open phones all next hour. I believe we've got Paul in Boise, Idaho, or shall I say Caddy. Caddy, welcome to America at Night.
Yes, I wanted to call and thank you for the jazz extravaganza and hearing Old Blue Eyes. I was so it was difficult for me to listen to him because I wasn't from that genre of music. I was more into the late 60s, early 70s is where I kind of got into music. But I was able to enjoy the Jazz Festival in Monterey. They had that once a year, and then they had the Blues Festival, and they had some great music that was played there. And I was fortunate. My father was a doctor, and he got tickets from the chief of police of Monterey at that time. So I got third row back right in the middle of the seats. And it was an incredible experience that hopefully I'll never forget.
Yeah, the Monterey Jazz Festival, I mean, you don't get any better than that. And you had third row center seats. I'd say you better not forget that. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yeah,
and we were fortunate. It was the chief of police who we got the tickets from, because my dad was his physician. And he was always giving us free tickets for whatever went through in the fairgrounds there in Monterey. And it was an experience growing up there. And I got to I didn't get to meet any of the musicians, but I'll tell you what, it was kind of like a shock to the system.
Yeah,
that type of vibrancy in music.
Well, there's a guy a couple years ago for Christmas. I bought myself one of those old 1950 furniture record players, right? With the radio in it, and it's sort of a console. And put the record on. Went to the record store, and I bought that Miles Davis Kind of Blue album. And it was just luck that I bought it. I was like, oh yeah, Miles Davis. I know jazz. I didn't know anything about it. I picked up the album. Luckily I picked it up and bought it, and I put it on, and it blew my mind. And he was right. It was so simple and yet so interesting, and it just sort of hooked you in, and it was so smooth and just classy and cool. And how do you describe cool in a song? It was really it moved me in ways I never really thought. And when I came across James Kaplan tonight talking about Frank, and I was like, wait a minute, you wrote a book about Miles Davis and this album that I love? We got to get you on. So it was a treat to listen to him. So Katie, I appreciate
perfect. You called it smooth, and that's exactly what that was.
Yeah. It was great. Hey, Paul, thanks for checking in.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. Let's go to John in St. Louis. John, good morning. Welcome to America at Night.
Hey, thanks, McGraw. Congratulations on this. Is your third week now, or
this is the end of my second week? Yeah, end of my second week.
I called the first day, and then we got lots. I enjoyed. Thanks for the Dr. Horvath. I remember reading some of his, a couple years ago or something, and I'm 75, so I remember all of when the whole tablet thing, and all that promotion, it was just suspect by anybody who grew up going to Catholic school, for example, and we got the Catholic mafia here, but that's good. That's something different. Anywho, the point, I guess, it's a crazy world, and it's just going faster all the time in the wrong direction. And I'm so glad that everybody's got a reasonable perspective, and he made some wonderful points. I was reading his some other interview while you were doing that interview of him, and he pointed that a lot of the teachers there are just afraid. The ones who know, like any industry, I mean, you're going to get fired if you go against the flow. You're not there. just like the whole medical complex now.
Well, listen to this. So I was talking to, there was a school that in my neighborhood or in my world where they they banned cell phones in the school and this year. And so I asked one of the professors, one of the teachers, whatever, I was like, hey, why did you ban the phones now? What happened that you guys banned the phones? And the word got back to me that the reason why this school banned the phones because the teachers would hand back the results of a test. And before the end of the class, the teachers were being inundated by texts, phone calls, and emails from parents complaining, why did you give my son a B? Why did my son get a C? I can't believe you gave my son a D or whatever, right? So before the class was finished, the kids had texted the parents, I got a B on my math test, I got a C on my math test, or right, the teacher doesn't like me. And the teachers were being inundated by the parents before the class was over with. And the school finally said, that's it, we're done. We can't make this work. It's just so disruptive. We're just going to ban phones altogether. And I applaud it. You don't need a phone in school. Right? I mean, you don't need to be on TikTok. You don't need to post what you're having for lunch. I get it. If I was that age, I'd be complaining about these old timers and they don't understand. But you don't need a phone. And again, we go back to outright. We couldn't see a PG-13 movie, and these people have these sexual predators who are constantly trying to bombard these people with phones, and the parents say, "Well, we want them to get a hold of us." Oh my goodness, right? You would never let a predator into your house, but you let him into your world with your daughter's phone. It's crazy.
It's worse than crazy. It's demonic. It's evil. It's the gateway's open. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're sharing your perspective on all that because you're younger than me, but still old enough to know. And then, like a lot of I think the population has been dumbed down. The parents are, even as not that. I mean, with all due respect, I mean they're distracted as well. The culture is,
Like, well, I got I got a 5-year-old, and I'm just walking into this world, and I hear older parents tell me, just you wait. And I maybe I won't be able to say no when she's 12 or 13, but I'm going to be the last holdout, right? I'm gonna be the last holdout, and when she's 40. And or I'm going to drop her off at the convent when she's 10. So when she's 40, I'll let her out of the convent and maybe she can get a phone. So how about that, John? Hey, John, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it.
You too.
Hey, that's going to do it for hour number 2. Hour number 3, that's how open phones work. If you're listening on a Friday night, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Something that's on your mind? Something you want to talk about? Movie you want to see? Movie you haven't seen? Something that piqued your interest? You got a question? Got a comment? That's open phones. That's the best part. Late night conversation. And again, this is the end of week number 2. In some ways, it feels like 5 minutes. And in other ways, it feels like 6 weeks. It's been a whirlwind 2 weeks, one in which I can only thank everybody who is listening and reaching out, the guests and the audience and the callers, and Alex back in the home studio and Richard back in the studio, just everyone making it as easy as possible for me. So it's been a crazy 2 weeks, but we'll look for one more hour with open phones and finish strong. So line up now. We got a couple lines open for you. 1-844-2McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. This is we got Alex Hinton as executive director. Our engineer tonight and behind the stick is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, it's hour number 3 on a Friday night, and this is when the crazies come out. This is when the fun really happens, right? Everyone's gone home. It's only us late night guys and gals who are staying up late listening to the radio. Can't sleep. It's been a long week. You don't know what's going on. You don't have anything to do tomorrow. You're staying up late. Maybe you're listening to the radio. It's dark out. You're driving down the road, right? You just finished dinner. You got another 300 miles ahead of you, and it's just you and me. You want to pass the night away. I'm supposed to keep you entertained. The great conversation. That's what we do with America at Night. That's the name of the show, America at Night. And here are the phone numbers. And we invite you to call in and chime in. 1-844-2-McGraw. That's MCGRAW. 1-844-262-4729. 1-844-262-4729. Lock it in your phone. Capture it. Save it. And then when you want to use it, give us a call. 1-844-2-McGraw, MCGRAW, or 1-844-262-4729. It's open phones, and it's the last hour, and we'll see what happens. I believe we've got Tony in Montreal. Tony, thanks for holding on. Welcome to America at Night.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. I'm doing great. Thanks for calling, and thanks for asking.
I was listening to your musical choice. I love it. The Sinatra stuff is amazing. When I got married, the song that we danced to was "Summer Wind." So you might want to. I don't know if you remember that, but I definitely know Mac. I definitely know Mac the Knife from "L.A. Woman" or whatever that.
"L.A. is my lady." Yeah, "L.A. is my lady." Yeah.
I know you tell stories, and I like it because it's not always political. But every Sunday morning, I had my dad listen to Shirley Bassey, who did the Goldfinger song in the movie for 007, Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin. That was a staple. Imagine an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old kid. That's what we listened to all morning and all afternoon. Didn't matter what the Rolling Stones were doing or the Beatles. And today, I'm still listening to that stuff. Can you believe it?
I believe it. I believe it. I believe it.
I just want to talk about Americans and whiteness tonight. And I feel like Americans take on white guilt as if you're the only ones that are guilty on the planet. People in the movement, the BLM people that were just, I guess one of them was indicted for $3.5 million of fraud. But the idea that Sarah Salter, a Kentucky rep, is trying to promote the idea that white children in the school system in Kentucky should be taught about white guilt. I think that's just unbelievable. And the Somali flag flying in Winooski when you had Black Hawk Down and people were dragging American corpses through the fields of Mogadishu. I think that's just unbelievable.
Well, but hold on a second, Tony. You've got you have Italian flags flying in America. After Mussolini and we fought in Italy, right? We've had German flags, right? We have German flags. No. I'm just saying, this is the second or third time you've called up about Somali issues. Look, you can't paint every Somali with what happened with Black Hawk Down. I mean, they're Americans, but they're very proud of their heritage. Pick a nationality, right? The Irish love being American, but they're very proud of their Irish heritage. The Germans, the Italians. I mean, we've got how many countless festivals all year long on the calendar celebrating somebody else's heritage.
So I just say this, in Canada, you guys had you always had the downturns of World War II. In Canada, they interned on St. Helens Island in Montreal, the Italian community that they believed were supporting Mussolini. So in my personal family, we had people that were related to my dad's side of the family that were interned there just because they were Italians. But we don't hate Canada because of that. That was just government being out of control. And they did the same thing to the Japanese in Vancouver. They put them in internment camps, and they put the Italians in Montreal on St. Helens Island in an internment camp. And I don't think waving the flag at the Italian community St. Anthony Boston party every year is saying that Americans are derogatory because we support this relationship to Italy. What I'm saying is that when you're a proud American or a proud Canadian, you shouldn't be, whatever your color is, you're not guilty of anything. You're only guilty when you're in front of a court. So social guilting to me is ridiculous, and it should never be taught to anybody in any school system. Okay. You should be taught how to do math. That's what you should be taught, not how to be guilty because of how you were born. That's just reverse. That's reverse victimization strategy. It's pork pocket pigmentation politics. That's what it's all about. Money pushing division. And Tony, I talked to you quite a few times.
Yes, Tony, I got it. I got your point. Thank you very much for the phone call. I got to move on. I got more phone calls. Gil in San Antonio. Gil, welcome to America at Night.
Yes, McGraw. I had a story kind of relating to the guest you had a couple of days ago who lived in Vietnam for a while researching a book.
Yes, James Bradley. Yes.
Yes. In 2019, I was living in Manila, Philippines, and my wife and I, it's a $50 plane ticket from Manila to Ho Chi Minh City, and we went and spent a couple of weeks. It's a great place for shopping. So much garments and shoes and things that are consumed in the United States are made in Vietnam, and you can go to shops that get the seconds, the things that, just a little off, and they are not exported, and you can buy them for next to nothing. But I called Jim Bohannon from Vietnam, and I was the first person to have ever called him from Vietnam, and I kind of played a little trick on him. I had a problem getting through by phone to his website. I had to
I would think so. Yeah.
I had to call an affiliate to get on the show, and Jim and I go all the way back to 1966 in the Army together, and I said, Jim, I think the problem with Vietnam Google, I heard a rumor that there might have been something happened while you were here in the Army. And he said, what was that? I said, well, there's a Vietnamese woman, there's a rumor of a Vietnamese woman who claims you owe her about 50 years of child support.
That's funny. How did he take it, Gil? I got to move on. How did he take it, Gil?
He was not fazed. He just said, not that I'm aware. That was his...
Gil, thanks for the phone call. Hey, stay right there. It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. There's somebody on the line who claims to be a friend of mine. Hold that thought. We'll take a quick break. We'll make them stay through the break, and then somebody claims to be my friend. We'll see how this thing turns out. 1-844-2-McGraw. It's open phones. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, America at Night, open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. It's America at Night. It's open phones. It's Friday night. The crazies are out. Tom in Omaha, good morning. Welcome to America at Night.
Good morning, and I'm a crazy one. Yeah, I'm a crazy one. It's America at Night. Good morning to you too, McGraw. Okay, I'm listening last night to you, my friend. And I heard this wonderful call from the gentleman from Kansas City who used to listen to you in Omaha. By the way, I am McGraw's mentor. I taught him everything he knows about talk radio, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, so I listened to the story about the guy from Kansas City who listened to you on the air, and you were an inspiration to him because you overcame your stutter, and he had a stutter, and you were, and it was a wonderful, touching story.
Beautiful,
okay?
Wonderful, heart-wrenching, beautiful, yes.
And quite honestly, inspirational, wonderful. I just don't want your listeners to get the wrong idea about you, okay? Because did you ever tell them about how you started in radio? You guys started in radio because the radio station was across the street, and you didn't have a car. You didn't have a car. You didn't have the bus fare to get to another job.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I had a car. The car broke down, and I didn't have any money to fix it.
Yeah. Matter of fact, didn't you just leave it on the street because you had no money to fix it?
I did. Well, I drove it into a parking lot somewhere. I didn't just leave it in the middle of the road. I mean, I'm not rude. I left it in a church parking lot somewhere and just sulked away. That's all I did.
Okay. So he gets the job, and he gets the job running the board overnight. Overnight at KFAB, 50,000 watt radio station, covers half the country. He's working the board overnight, running the talk shows and that, and he gets promoted to where he can do the traffic reports in the morning show. So he's doing the traffic reports in the morning show, but he still has the stutter. And the thing is, so if there was a traffic accident on a street he couldn't pronounce, he would just make up traffic tie-ups on streets he could pronounce, even though there wasn't a traffic tie-up on that street.
Is that wrong?
Well,
is that wrong?
It's not right. It's not right.
There were a lot of accidents on Lee Street, apparently, at that time of the morning.
I know. It was very dangerous to drive on that street in the morning time because, well, if you were on, Pacific, you'd have a problem. But if you were on Lee or any other monosyllable word, you know what I'm saying there.
Yes.
That would work. Anyway, but here's one of my favorite McGraw stories that I can tell on the air. Again, as I said, this guy had nothing. He had nothing but a desire, and that he clogged up his toilet and didn't have a plunger. I get a phone call asking, hey, do you have a plunger I can borrow? Who borrows a plunger? Nobody borrows a plunger. They're like $1.98. You couldn't go to the hardware store and buy a plunger. No, he borrowed my plunger, and then after he was done with it, he said, "Hey, I want to return your plunger." I said, "No, thanks. We're good."
Well, I don't want to be one of those friends. I don't want to be one of those friends that borrows a power tool and never gives it back. So I was just trying to be polite.
It was a plunger. If you borrowed a power tool, that's understandable. Okay. You got a saw. A rotary saw that you're only going to use one time. You don't want to spend $400 on the saw. Borrow it all day long. It was a $1.98 plunger.
Well, to be honest with you, it really wasn't that good of a plunger.
Well, man, no, it was. It was a great.
You should have bought a more expensive plunger. I could have used,
but I didn't clog up the toilet the way that you clogged up your toilet.
You should have gone for the more expensive one, because the one I borrowed from you really wasn't. That's why I actually gave it back to you. It really wasn't, wasn't the top of the line. Wasn't top of the line plunger that I was used to borrowing.
When I replaced it, so yeah, I did. But seriously, McGraw, as you well know, man, I'm so happy for you with this job, with this gig. People that are listening, tell your friends about McGraw. Have them tune into at night. It's just going to be good conversation, interesting, informative stuff, and he's only going to pronounce words that are easy to pronounce. So I just want to say.
I think you should tell. I think you should tell them I only make up traffic reports. Everything else I say is true.
Yeah, like when you said good morning to me tonight. Yeah, that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a house to buy or sell in Omaha, Tom Becca, that's who to call in Omaha. Hey, Tom, thanks for checking in.
I got out of radio. I couldn't make it. I got out of radio. So
well, yeah, obvious. I mean, after people listening to you, they know why you got out of radio after this phone call. Yeah.
At least I knew the difference between morning and night.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the comedy stylings of Tom Becca here on America at Night. Tom, love you, mean it. Thanks for checking in. Longtime friend.
Later, man.
Long time caller, first time listener. Tom Becca, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Talk to you later, my friend. I've known Tom 30 years. 30 years? At least 30 years. Well, I met him in 1994. So that's 30. Yeah, that's 31 years. Yeah. 31 years. Boy, he's getting old too, by the way. All right, here's the deal. We got more phone calls, open phones on America at Night. We have to chastise the call screener. Can we call out? Can we screen some of those drunk callers who call in on a Friday night? That really brings down to the show. All right, we got John in Reno, Larry in Charleston, South Carolina. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-262-4729, or 1-844-2-McGraw. It is America at Night. This is the end of our second week, and it has been an absolute blast these last 2 weeks. And gotten a lot of great response, a lot of great friends checking in, a lot of great texts, everybody saying all sorts of nice things. So it's been a treat, and you guys waiting online to take a phone call. I got a hard break at the bottom of the hour. Normally, I'm not very good with following the clock, but when you run a syndicated show, you kind of have to follow the clock and wait for the sound so you can stop talking. So, but I didn't want to take a phone call because I had it like 30 seconds to go. So I figured I'd just give the phone numbers again: 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. That's the music. I got to take a break. Larry, John, hold that thought. We'll get to you guys on the other side of the hour. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, it's open phones. Let's 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. John in Reno, Nevada. Welcome to America at Night.
Hey, McGraw. I just want to go on the record as overwhelmingly supporting Trump's strikes on the drug boats and confiscating the oil tankers. Maduro, I had high hopes for him when he came in. I hoped he could pull the miracle off and fix Chavez's mistakes. But he made the same mistakes, and now the last two elections he's stolen with the military. Good riddance. We can't get rid of this guy soon enough. A lot of my very liberal friends in San Francisco have lost a lot of friends in Venezuela and Nicaragua to the prison system for speaking out. Hopefully he can get rid of Ortega after he gets rid of Maduro.
So you're in favor of regime change?
Most certainly.
And America,
we're really doing the world.
Let me ask you this: how far are you willing to go? Do you want to send troops into Venezuela?
No, not really send troops in. I think we should. Shut down their airspace. We should confiscate all the oil tankers. We should continue bombing the drug boats. And we should foment revolution from within, not with our troops, but we should set the climate.
Okay, so hold on a second. That's going to take secret CIA operatives, and we should probably call up Ollie North, see what he's doing to help out in this, right? I mean, that might not be military, but it's CIA, right? I mean, you're talking. Regime change, you're going to have to push the guy. The guy seems like the guy's not going to go easy. And I don't know, knocking off a couple of small little boats in the Caribbean is going to do much to stop the drug trade. I don't know, seizing a couple of boats, which Venezuela oil production is way down. It's not very good oil. I don't know if that's going to do anything. If you really want regime change, you're going to have to go in. So I don't know if America's ready and willing to do that.
Just last week, he had a phone call with Trump, and he was trying to negotiate a surrender with immunity, blanket immunity for his regime. And he was going to run off to either Cuba or Abu Dhabi. He knows the end is near. He's nowhere close to getting the deal he wants right now, but he knows it's over.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. John, thanks for the phone call in Reno. Larry in Charleston, South Carolina. Good morning or good evening, Larry. Welcome to America at Night.
Okay. Am I being heard loud and clear, I hope?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm 81 years old and a Marine who fought in Vietnam, and I was there for the initiation of the Tet Offensive in 1968 in the city called Way City. If you ever heard of that, Vietnam in 1968. There'll be some vets out there who may know of that date.
Okay.
Now, I want to tell you that because I've put blood into it before, and I ought to have a chance to speak. And I want to talk about the president, although I voted for him, and I'm in supporter, and I'm also agreeing with most of his positions and his economic tactics.
Okay, so you're in favor of the tariffs,
however,
if you will.
I'm going to, be somewhat critical, and I don't want to put the wrong edge on it. I'd like you to give me the chance to say what I want to say.
Well,
and
I will try. I will do my best. I will do my best. I'm under time constraints, obviously. So the sooner you get to your point, the better you'll have a chance of getting it out. But I will give you the floor. Go ahead.
That you can hear. Here's the situation. The president should quit appeasing Putin. We don't want to see the birds of a feather flocking together. Didn't your mama tell you that wasn't a good idea? He shouldn't be glad-handing, patting on the back with Putin and letting him put him off time after time for a year now about how to reach some conclusion to the situation in Ukraine. Here's the way to deal with it. That is, quit trying to appease Putin. Win the war. Demonstrate to the world that the power of the United States, together with NATO, is so awesome that Putin will be rapidly brought down militarily in Ukraine, and then to extend it, if necessary, into areas in Russia. We can do that by the deployment of rapid Dragon missile systems that can be deployed from the back ends of a C-17.
All right, Larry.
And
Larry, let me ask Larry, you've made your point. Let me ask you a question, because I do find this somewhat interesting, you being a Trump supporter and all. But in this instance, you're much more supportive of the Biden administration, how that was handling the Ukraine situation, as opposed to the Trump administration. Is that safe to say?
Sir, it's just not true. Biden said he gave $300 billion. That never happened. That never happened. All that money never went.
But Biden was much more stern towards Putin, right? He was much more involved with NATO to sort of stand up to Putin and sort of back Ukraine. Your argument is you don't like the way Trump's handling this war. I'm asking, were you more on the side of the way Biden, as he stood up to Putin as he sort of engaged with NATO to make a solid force, right? I mean, is that safe to say?
I'm completely against Biden and his
I understand.
idiotic ideas.
Fine. I understand that, but you're saying Biden was much more in line with your philosophy on Ukraine than Trump's.
No, that is not true.
That's
saying
what you just said. Hold on a second. You just said you wish Trump would stand up to Putin, and that Putin is going about it all wrong, and we should be on NATO's side and all that. That's what Biden was doing.
No, he was not.
He wasn't.
He didn't have any capability to do that. He never supplied the kind of military support that was necessary. And right now, we have the military support that can defeat Russia in about a month. We have that. We had the F-35.
Okay. Would you like to send American troops into Ukraine to help out the cause?
Excuse me, sir?
Would you like to send in American troops and American planes with American pilots?
No way.
Okay.
No,
well, you keep talking. You keep talking about these systems.
That's right. And these systems can be operated by professional retired people who are available for hire, and they are employed in various areas of the world. And they are employable at the present time. Some of them, many of them, are coming from the Middle East, Israelis who can supply some of the very best professional pilots who have 20 years and more of experience.
So you would like to take our planes, give them to independent... let them use our planes to hire independent contractors who can fly the planes and then bomb and help Ukraine. That's what you would prefer.
Yes, and not just that. Well, let's bring in C-17 with the Rapid Dragons and cover all of Russia with 1,200-mile missiles that can hit any place.
All right. Larry, I'll send it to the Pentagon, see what they say. Thanks for the phone call, Larry in Charleston, South Carolina. All right. That's an idea. Let's chew on that one. All right. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I don't have the official numbers, but President Biden did send a number of missile systems and defensive systems, and they didn't send any troops, but they sent support and logistics and all those types of things, which what he was criticized for. It sounds like Larry was saying that Joe Biden didn't go far enough, wanted to send more, not troops, but he wants to go out to Indeed and find some pilots who could fly our planes instead of our military guys. Larry, thanks for the insight, and thank you for your service to the country. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, one more story here for you on a crazy week here in America at Night. Can we talk about this Michigan football coach for just a minute? Sharon Moore was fired earlier this week in what turned out to be a bizarre story, and the more that comes out, the more bizarre it is. So the University of Michigan fires their coach, his second year, Sharon Moore, after a woman he was having an affair with who apparently also happens to be employed as a staffer. All they're calling her is a staffer at the University of Michigan, somewhere in the sports department. So the story goes, according to reports, now that it's been out for a couple of days, she breaks off this relationship. Apparently he's married, but he was having a relationship for a number of years with this staffer within the University of Michigan's athletic department. She breaks off the relationship. And he then proceeds to go to her house and threaten her, and he's now charged with the felony home invasion and stalking. The authorities have now laid out the allegations. The woman was having an affair for a number of years before she ended the relationship. The coach repeatedly called the woman and texted her, right? So he started harassing her. She refused to answer. Eventually, she went to the University of Michigan and said, I'm having an affair with the football coach, and I'm being harassed and stalked and texted, and I'm telling him to go away, and he won't stop. So they do an investigation, apparently. They find out that it's true. They fire him. And then, apparently, he heads to a woman's apartment, breaks into the apartment, proceeds to the kitchen drawer, grabs several knives and a pair of scissors, and he begins to threaten his own life. This is the head coach of the University of Michigan. The prosecutors are quoted as saying that Moore, the coach, tells his now former girlfriend, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to make you watch. Blood is on your hands. You've ruined my life. She becomes terrorized. Apparently, the cops get involved. He is carted away in handcuffs. He spends 2 nights in jail. That's the story. He gets fired. Now the whole world knows. He's married. He has 3 children. And he's out of a job. He's sitting in jail, and his life is taking a turn for the worse. Now, obviously, Michigan had to fire the guy, right? But Michigan also has a problem on its hands. And here's the problem they have. So obviously, the woman needs to be protected. And the woman is clearly the victim here because she breaks up with the guy and he proceeds to, right, go overboard and harass her and text her and bully her, and right, and then proceeds to go to her house and then, threatens her, and clearly there are some issues here. And she's the innocent bystander. Clearly, right? However, she was, at one point before the violence happened, she was having an affair with a married man. And it was an inappropriate relationship because he was married, and either she was the subordinate or he was the boss, or even though they might have been working in 2 different, she was working in the PR department and he was working over here, or she was working tickets and had no connection with him in the football department or whatever else. At one point, she was a willing participant, it seems like, in this relationship. So what happens when you're in a corporation and 2 people are having an affair, right? They both get fired. Right? What was that famous case of the 2 people who were working for ABC? Right? They were co-hosts on the show, and they were both having an affair with each other, and they both got fired because they were both having an affair. Well, in this situation, she was having a consensual relationship with the coach that turned violent. So she's the victim on one hand, but also she was having an inappropriate affair before it turned violent. So she keeps her job. He loses his job. I don't know, man. That is a nightmare of a scenario. And Michigan, of course, gets all this bad press. This guy's the whole thing is awful. And then as a kicker, shows you how bad college football is today. Other coaches from around college football are now vultures. They're calling up these guys on the team and saying, "Well, your program is in complete disarray. Come to my program." So this man's life is ruined. The woman's life is in the middle of this tragedy. And you've got these vultures flying around trying to pick off all these football players from the football team. So we'll see how many kids leave. But what a bizarre story. And now with college football, where these kids can transfer every other year, Michigan has got themselves in a world of hurt, and all bad press all the way around. So the more you dig into this story, the more you scratch this story, the more bizarre and the more tragic it is. So with that being said, we'll end it with that one. That is the end of a week. And oh, what a week it was. I thank you for everything, and our thanks to James Kaplan earlier in the show and Dr. James Horvath, and, of course, Theo Lewis Clark with Hollywood Exec for a Day. That's going to do it for us. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. The man behind the stick tonight, our engineer, is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.